"Make it quick, rancher. I won't scream," said the wounded Apache girl who was stuck under the canyon. Jack Harper had been riding the same trails for years, so he knew every bend, every cliff, and every hidden crevice of the canyon lands near his family's ranch. The sun had just started to rise, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and the air smelled of dry earth and pine. He liked mornings like this, when the world seemed calm and quiet, and all he could hear was the soft crunch of his horse's hooves on the dirt trail. But today felt different. There was an unease in the air, something subtle, almost like the canyon itself was holding its breath. As Jack guided his horse along a narrow path, his eyes caught something unusual. There were small footprints near the edge of the trail, tiny, delicate, and unlike the tracks of animals he usually saw. They led toward a side canyon, a narrow gap between two steep cliffs. His instincts told him to be careful. This wasn't just the wind or a stray animal. Something had passed through here, and it hadn't been alone. He spurred his horse gently, moving closer to the tracks. The canyon walls towered over him, rugged and jagged, casting deep shadows even in the early sunlight. Jack noticed other signs: scuffed rocks, broken branches, and faint marks in the dirt. It looked like a struggle had taken place. His heart began to beat faster, not out of fear, but out of caution. He had seen dangerous situations before, but this felt different, more urgent. Then he heard it, a faint, almost whispered voice calling for help. "Please, help me," it said. Jack froze. The voice was soft but strained, weak and tired, carrying an urgency that made him push his horse faster. He followed the sound, navigating through the rocky terrain with care. Every step was tricky. Loose stones threatened to make his horse slip. He urged it forward with gentle taps, focusing on the voice now growing slightly louder. Finally, he reached a small clearing at the base of a steep cliff. And there she was, a young girl, barely in her teens, pinned under a pile of fallen rocks. Her clothes were torn and she had a streak of blood along her forehead and arm. But her eyes were sharp, alert, and strangely calm. She looked up at him with a mix of fear and resolve. "Make it quick, rancher. I won't scream," she said. Her voice was steady despite her obvious pain. Jack blinked. He hadn't expected her to speak so boldly. There was courage in her tone, something that set him at ease despite the danger. Jack dismounted carefully, landing softly on the uneven ground. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently, moving closer. "We're going to get you out of here, but you need to stay still." The girl nodded, her dark hair falling over her face. "I can't move much," she admitted, glancing at the rocks that pinned her leg. "But I can help if you need me to." Jack examined the pile of rocks. Some were small enough to lift by hand, but others were heavy and lodged tightly in the dirt. He realized it would take time and careful effort to free her without causing further injury. He dug into his saddlebag and pulled out a sturdy rope. "We'll do this slowly. Can you hold on to this?" he asked, tying one end to a loop. She gripped the rope with her small hands, her fingers trembling slightly, but her determination unwavering. Jack started removing the smaller stones first, shifting them carefully aside. The girl winced as he moved a jagged rock near her shoulder, but she didn't cry out. She kept her focus on him, her eyes bright and unafraid. "Where did you come from?" Jack asked gently as he worked, trying to keep her mind off the pain. My group was moving through the canyon," she said between breaths. "We got separated. I didn't mean to. I didn't know this would happen." Her voice faltered, and she swallowed hard. "I'm, Ioka," she added quietly, as if introducing herself might make things feel more normal. "Nice to meet you, Ioka," Jack replied. "I'm Jack. We're going to get you out of here, I promise." He paused for a moment to assess her injuries. Her arm was scraped and bleeding, and there was a deep bruise forming on her side. He had seen many injuries before, but the calmness she carried under such pain amazed him. It was rare to see someone so young with such courage. Jack adjusted his plan. He used the rope to create leverage, slowly moving the larger rocks, while Ahioka helped by shifting slightly when she could. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the heat began to press down on them. Sweat ran down Jack's forehead, and his muscles ached from the effort, but he didn't stop. Every movement mattered. One wrong shift could make the rocks tumble dangerously. All the while, Ahioka whispered small stories about her life. We were moving from our village because it wasn't safe anymore. My family, they stayed behind to protect our things, she said. Jack listened, nodding silently, careful not to get too close to the rocks in case they shifted. Her words painted a picture of resilience, of a girl forced to grow up too fast in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably less than an hour, Jack managed to loosen the last heavy rock trapping her leg. "Almost there," he said encouragingly. "Just a little more." With a careful lift, he freed her leg and helped her crawl out from under the rubble. She fell against him, exhausted but alive. Jack lowered her gently to the ground. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment before opening them again. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was soft now, filled with relief. "You're safe for now," Jack assured her. He looked around the canyon. The trail back to his ranch was steep and treacherous, but it was the only way to get her proper help. "Can you walk with me?" he asked. Ahaka nodded, leaning on him slightly as they began the careful climb back toward the trail. Every step was cautious. Loose gravel slipped under their boots and hooves, but Jack guided them both with steady hands. They moved slowly, aware of the dangers but relieved to be alive. As they climbed, Jack noticed something about Ahioka. Despite her fear and pain, she carried herself with dignity. She didn't whimper or complain unnecessarily. She offered small smiles, even jokes, to ease the tension. "I guess I'm lucky the canyon chose today to be gentle," she said quietly, and Jack chuckled despite the seriousness of the situation. By the time they reached a flatter area near the trail, the sun was high in the sky. Jack could see his ranch in the distance, a cluster of buildings and fences framed by the canyon walls. He knew that once they reached it, Ahioka would be safe and could receive proper care. But for now, the bond between them had already formed, a bond born from trust, courage, and a shared fight against the dangers of the canyon. Jack looked at her and said, "You're one brave girl, Ahioka. Not many would have stayed so calm under all that." Ahioka smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and pride. "I had to," she said softly. "There was no other choice." And with that, they continued the slow trek back, two unlikely companions brought together by circumstance, courage, and the wild, unforgiving beauty of the canyon. Jack led Ahioka carefully along the canyon trail, his eyes scanning every rock, every shadow, and every dip in the path. The sun was higher now, warm on their backs, and the steep cliffs around them made the journey slow and difficult. Ahioka leaned slightly on him, her steps careful and deliberate. Though her injuries were not life-threatening, it was clear she was in pain, and Jack knew he needed to move carefully to avoid making things worse.
"You're doing well," Jack said gently, glancing down at her.
"We're almost to a place where we can rest safely." Ahioka nodded, her dark eyes scanning the cliffs around them. "I thought no one would find me," she whispered. "I was so sure I would be alone forever." Her voice carried a mix of fear and relief. Jack felt a pang in his chest. He had seen fear before, but the way this young girl had faced it, alone in the canyon, injured and vulnerable, left him in awe. They reached a small flat area nestled between two rock formations, shaded by an overhanging ledge. Jack lowered Ahioka gently to the ground. "Let's take a short rest here," he suggested, pulling a water skin from his saddlebag. He offered it to her, and she drank slowly, savoring the cool liquid. He handed her some dried bread, and she ate cautiously, as though unsure how much energy she could spare. While she rested, Jack examined her injuries more closely. Her arm had a deep scrape, and her leg was bruised, but she didn't seem to have broken bones. He cleaned the wounds as best as he could with a clean cloth from his bag, applying a simple dressing. Ahioka winced occasionally but remained quiet, her expression composed. "You've got a strong spirit," Jack said, his voice soft. Most kids your age wouldn't last a day in these canyons, let alone survive being trapped under rocks. Ahioka gave a faint smile. I had to be strong. My family. I had to survive. Her eyes drifted toward the canyon walls, lost in thought. They weren't with me. I got separated, and I couldn't go back. I didn't have a choice. Jack nodded, understanding more than he could put into words. He had lived in these lands all his life and knew the dangers that lurked: rock slides, wild animals, and the unforgiving sun. For a young girl to navigate them alone was nothing short of remarkable. After a short rest, Jack helped Ayoka to her feet. We need to keep moving, he said. There's a safer area near my ranch where you can rest properly. Ayoka leaned on him at times, but she also tried to walk on her own, refusing to be entirely dependent. I can manage, she insisted softly. I need to keep my strength. Jack respected her determination. All right, he said. We'll go your pace. Just let me know if it gets too much. As they navigated the rocky trail, Jack noticed the way Ahioka observed her surroundings. Her eyes were alert, taking in every detail, the way the rocks were stacked, the movement of birds above, the direction of shadows that might indicate a slope. It was clear she had grown up with knowledge of the land, despite her youth. Have you lived here long? Jack asked, trying to keep the conversation light. No, my family moved a lot, Ahioka replied. We traveled between villages and camps. My people, we had to be careful. There were dangers all around, even from people. She hesitated, then added, I didn't expect the canyon to be so unforgiving. Jack nodded. It can be, but it also teaches you things. How to survive, how to watch and listen. He paused, thinking of how lucky he felt that he had come upon her when he did. You're lucky I found you when I did. Ahioka looked at him, her expression thoughtful. Maybe, or maybe it was my luck too. I knew someone would come. There was a quiet confidence in her words that caught Jack off guard. As they climbed higher along the trail, the sun climbed even higher in the sky. The heat was intense, and Jack could feel sweat running down his back, soaking his shirt. Ahioka's face was flushed, but she pressed on, refusing to complain. He admired her resilience, but knew he couldn't let her push too hard. Let's take another short break, he suggested when he saw a small outcrop that offered shade. He lowered her carefully to the ground again. Drink some water. Breathe. She obeyed, taking small sips and sitting quietly. After a moment, she spoke. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't here. I might not have made it. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but Jack heard the fear behind it. You made it this far, Ahioka, he said, and you'll make it all the way to safety. I won't let anything happen to you, she nodded, her dark eyes meeting his. There was a flicker of trust, something fragile but growing between them. Jack realized how important it was for her to feel safe, deep, even as they navigated such dangerous terrain. The trail became steeper, and Jack had to help her over loose rocks and narrow ledges. Each step required careful coordination. At one point, Ahioka nearly slipped, and Jack caught her just in time, holding her steady. Careful, he said gently, steadying her with his strong hands. You're doing well, but we have to be careful. Ahioka nodded, gripping his arm tightly. I can do this, she insisted, her voice firm despite the tremor of fatigue. I need to! Jack marveled at her courage. Few adults would have the same determination she did, and he felt a deep respect for her. The canyon had been cruel, but she had faced it with strength beyond her years. As they moved forward, the canyon opened slightly, revealing a distant view of the ranch below. Jack felt a wave of relief. They were closer to safety, but he also knew the hardest part was still ahead, the descent down a narrow, rocky slope. He kept his mind focused, planning every step to ensure they wouldn't slip or fall. Ahioka noticed the view and paused, taking it in. It's beautiful, she said softly, even with all this danger. Jack smiled. It can be. That's why I stay here. The land is harsh, yes, but it has its moments, and it teaches you things about yourself, if you listen. They began the careful descent, Jack in front guiding the way, Ahioka following as best as she could. Loose rocks slid underfoot, and he had to use the rope to secure her footing. At one point, a small rock slide tumbled down nearby, startling them both. Jack reassured her with a firm hand on her shoulder.
It's okay, we're fine.
Just keep moving slowly. Hours passed, and their movements became slower but more deliberate. Jack could feel his arms and legs growing tired, but he refused to let it show. Ahioka, too, was weary, but she pressed on with quiet determination. He could see that the experience was shaping her, making her stronger in ways that only survival could. Finally, as the sun began to dip towards the horizon, they reached a broader trail that led towards the ranch. Jack felt a surge of relief. Safety was close, and he knew Ahioka would soon be able to rest properly and receive care for her injuries. He offered her a reassuring smile. "We made it," he said softly. "Not much farther now. You're almost there." Ahioka's eyes lit up with a mixture of exhaustion and hope. "Thank you," she whispered again. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't have to," Jack said firmly. "You survived. That's enough for me." As they continued the last stretch, the ranch buildings grew clearer. Smoke rose from a small chimney, and the familiar sounds of animals echoed from the pens. Jack knew that once they reached the house, Ahioka would be safe. But the journey had changed them both. They had shared fear, hope, and trust in ways that few people ever do. When they finally arrived, Jack led her to a shaded spot near the barn. He helped her sit down and offered her water and some fresh bread from the kitchen. She drank and ate slowly, her hands trembling slightly from the long day.
"You'll rest here for a while," Jack said. "Then we can get you cleaned up properly."
"You're safe now, Ahioka. That's what matters." She looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper, a sense of trust and relief. "I feel safe," she admitted softly. "For the first time in a long time." Jack nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The canyon had tested her, but she had survived. And now, thanks to a little luck and some careful guidance, she would have the chance to heal and regain her strength. As the sun set over the canyon, casting golden light across the rugged landscape, Jack and Ahioka sat together in silence, both aware of the bond that had formed between them. It was a bond of trust, courage, and shared experience, one that would carry them through the challenges yet to come. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the beauty and danger of the canyon, Jack knew one thing for certain. Ahioka was stronger than most people he had ever met, and he would do everything in his power to make sure she made it safely through the next chapter of her journey. Jack led Ahioka through a narrow path behind the ranch, away from the main buildings and prying eyes. The afternoon sun was warm, but the shade from the tall canyon walls provided some relief. He knew that she needed more than just water and food. She needed a place to rest, clean bandages, and recover from the shock of being trapped in the canyon. "This will be our little camp for now," Jack said, motioning to a small clearing near a grove of trees. It wasn't much, just a flat patch of dirt surrounded by rocks and shrubs, but it was safe and hidden. He helped Ahioka sit on a soft blanket he had brought from the barn, gently lowering her to the ground. Ahioka looked around with cautious eyes. "It's nice here," she said softly. She touched the grass and small shrubs, as if noticing for the first time the calm of being somewhere safe. Jack smiled gently. "It's not a palace, but it's safe. You can rest, eat, and heal here before we decide what comes next." He unpacked his bag and offered her some more water. She drank slowly, savoring every drop, then took a small piece of bread and ate carefully. After she had eaten, Jack examined her injuries more closely. Her arm was scraped and bruised, and her leg was swollen from the pressure of being trapped. He cleaned the wounds again, this time more carefully, using warm water from a canteen and clean cloths. He applied herbal salves he had learned about over the years and bandaged her arm and leg snugly, but not too tight. "You're very brave," Jack said as he worked. "Most people would have panicked by now, but you stayed calm even while trapped under those rocks. Ahioka looked down at her bandaged arm, her expression serious. I had to. I didn't have a choice. Panicking would have made it worse. I had to think. Survive. Her voice was quiet but full of conviction. Jack felt a deep respect for her strength. Once her injuries were attended to, Jack set up a small fire. He cooked some simple stew with vegetables and meat from the ranch, filling the clearing with a warm, comforting smell. Ahioka watched him quietly, her eyes following every movement. She hadn't eaten a proper meal in days, and the smell made her stomach growl. Jack handed her a bowl of stew, and she ate slowly, savoring the warmth and taste. While she ate, Jack kept an eye on the canyon around them. He knew the area was isolated, but he also knew the dangers weren't completely gone. Animals, unstable cliffs, and the possibility of strangers entering the area all needed to be considered. But for now, the small camp was safe. After the meal, Ahioka leaned back against a rock and sighed. I never thought I would be alive right now, she admitted softly. When I was trapped, I thought this could be the end. Jack sat beside her, offering comfort without words. He understood the feeling all too well, the sudden confrontation with mortality, the sharp awareness of how fragile life could be. You're alive, he said simply, and you're here. That's what matters. Ahioka looked at him, her dark eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sadness. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how I can ever repay you. You don't need to repay me, Jack replied. Helping you was the right thing to do. That's enough. He paused, then added, but if you want, you can tell me about your life. I'd like to know who you are. She hesitated at first, then nodded slowly. My name is Ahioka, she said. I'm from a small village not far from here. We were moving because it wasn't safe anymore. My family, they stayed behind to protect our things. I got separated, and I ended up here. She paused, her voice catching slightly. I didn't know if I would make it. Jack listened quietly, giving her space to speak. He could tell that sharing her story was difficult, but also necessary. I'm glad you're telling me, he said gently. It helps me understand what you've been through. Ahioka took a deep breath. Life has never been easy, she said. We always had to move, always had to be careful. The canyon, it's dangerous, but we try to survive. Sometimes people don't understand that. They see children and think they are weak, but we have to be strong. Her eyes met Jack's, filled with determination and pride. Jack nodded.
I understand. Strength doesn't always come from size or age.
Sometimes it comes from the heart, and you have plenty of that. As the sun began to lower, the shadows in the canyon grew longer. Jack suggested that they get some rest. He helped Ahioka lie down on the blanket, covering her with a light jacket to keep her warm. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, she seemed to relax. Jack stayed nearby, keeping watch. He knew the night could bring cold temperatures and unexpected dangers, but he also knew she needed to sleep. The trust between them had grown, subtle but strong, and he felt a responsibility to protect her. During the night, Ahioka stirred a few times, her face twisted slightly in discomfort.
Jack checked her, adjusting the blanket and ensuring she was comfortable.
It's all right, he whispered. You're safe here. I'm right here. She relaxed again, comforted by his presence. In the quiet hours, Jack reflected on the day's events. He thought about the courage it took for a young girl to survive being trapped alone, and he felt a deep admiration for her. He also thought about the responsibility he now carried, not just to keep her safe, but to help her find a way back to her family and community. Morning came slowly, the light soft and golden across the canyon. Ahioka woke, rubbing her eyes and stretching carefully. I feel better, she said quietly, glancing at Jack. Thank you for taking care of me. You're welcome, Jack replied. But you've done most of the work yourself. You survived a lot already. Ahioka nodded, looking thoughtful. I need to get back to my people, she said softly. I can't stay here forever. But I'm scared. I don't know what will happen. Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
We'll figure it out together. I won't let anything happen to you.
First you heal. Then we find a safe way to get you back to them. They spent the day at the camp, Jack helping Ioka regain strength. He taught her simple exercises to keep her muscles moving and offered her food regularly. They talked quietly, sharing stories of their lives and experiences. Ahioka told him about her village, her family, and the lessons she had learned from living in the canyon. Jack shared stories of the ranch, his life in the canyon, and the skills he had learned to survive in this harsh land. Through their conversations, a bond grew stronger. It was a bond of trust, courage, and shared understanding. Ahioka learned to rely on Jack for guidance and support, and Jack learned to respect her resilience, intelligence, and bravery. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Jack packed a small bag with essentials for their journey back toward her community. Water, food, and clean bandages were included. Ahioka helped, moving carefully but with determination. She had regained some of her strength and confidence, ready to face the next stage of her journey. Before leaving the camp, Jack looked at her and said, "Remember, no matter what happens, you are stronger than you think. And you're not alone. And I'll help you get back safely." Ahioka nodded, a small smile on her face. "Thank you, Jack," she said. "I'm ready." Together they prepared to leave the safe clearing, stepping back into the canyon trail with renewed determination. The day had tested them both, but it had also strengthened their bond and prepared them for the challenges ahead. The canyon was still dangerous, but for the first time in days, Ahioka felt hope, and Jack felt a deep sense of responsibility and respect for the girl who had survived so much and still refused to give up. The next morning, Jack and Ahioka began their journey down the canyon trail toward her community. The sun was rising slowly, casting soft light across the jagged cliffs and dusty paths. Jack carried a small pack with supplies, water, food, and clean bandages, while Ahioka walked steadily beside him, leaning lightly on his arm for support when the path became steep. "Are you sure you're ready?" Jack asked gently, glancing at her. "The trail will be tricky, and we don't know what we might encounter along the way."
Ayaka nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "I'm ready."
"I have to get back. My family, they'll be worried." Her voice trembled slightly, but the courage in her tone was clear. As they walked, Ahioka began to share more about why she had been traveling alone.
We were moving because some people wanted to take our land.
"My family had to leave quickly, and I got separated while helping with our supplies," she explained. "I thought I could follow them, but the canyon, it was harder than I expected."
Jack listened carefully, absorbing every word.
He understood the dangers she had faced, wild animals, loose rocks, harsh terrain. But now he realized that her struggles weren't only with nature. She had faced threats from people as well, and that made her courage even more remarkable. "The canyon can be unforgiving," Jack said softly, "but it also teaches you things. You've already learned how to survive in ways most adults couldn't." Ahioka looked at him and managed a small smile. "I had to. I couldn't rely on anyone else." The trail grew narrower as they descended, cliffs rising sharply on either side. Loose stones and gravel made each step a careful calculation. Jack went first, testing the ground before each move, while Ahioka followed, trusting him completely. At times he reached back to steady her, his hand firm and reassuring. Suddenly a distant noise broke the quiet. It was faint at first, but then Jack heard it clearly. Voices shouting from somewhere down the canyon. He stopped immediately, signaling for Ahioka to do the same.
Stay calm,
he whispered. "I don't know who they are, but we need to be careful." Ahioka's eyes widened, but she nodded, trusting his judgment. Jack scanned the terrain, looking for any signs of danger. He saw a narrow ledge leading up to a rocky outcrop. "We can take this path," he said. "It's safer and hidden from anyone below." They carefully moved to the outcrop, climbing silently. The voices grew louder for a moment, then faded as they continued along the hidden path. Jack felt his pulse quicken, He didn't know if these people were a threat or just travelers, but he knew he had to protect Ahioka at all costs. Once they reached a safer area, Jack allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. That was close, he said.
But we're safe now. Keep moving, and we'll get to your community before nightfall.
Ahioka nodded, her courage renewed but her expression serious.
Thank you for protecting me, she said quietly. I don't know what I would have done alone.
You don't have to think about that, Jack replied.
You've done your part by staying strong. I'm just here to help you. As they continued, Ahioka began to open up more about her life and her people. We live simply, she explained. Our families help each other, and everyone has a role. I was responsible for gathering supplies and helping my younger siblings. My parents, they taught me how to survive, how to stay alert, and how to respect the land. That's why I managed to stay calm when I was trapped. Jack listened with admiration. You've learned a lot, he said. More than most people your age. And it shows in the way you handle yourself now. They walked for hours, navigating the winding canyon trails. The sun climbed higher, and the heat pressed down on them. Jack made sure Ahioka drank water regularly and ate small pieces of bread to keep her energy up. Despite her exhaustion, she refused to complain, moving steadily forward with quiet determination. As they rounded a bend, they came across the remnants of a small campsite. Smoke had long since faded, and the area looked abandoned, but the sight reminded Ahioka of the dangers her people faced constantly. This could have been someone like us, she said softly, or someone who wanted to hurt us.
We have to be careful, Jack nodded. Exactly.
That's why we stay alert and stick together. You've survived this far because you've been smart and cautious. The trail began to descend sharply, the path narrow and rocky. Jack went first, testing each step while Ahioka followed slowly. At one point, a small rock shifted beneath her foot, causing her to stumble. Jack grabbed her arm immediately, steadying her. Careful, he said gently. Take your time, one step at a time. Ahioka nodded, gripping his arm tightly. I will. I'm scared, but I won't fall. Jack could see the fear in her eyes, but he also saw determination. This was a girl who had faced death and survived. She was learning to trust him completely, and that trust gave him strength as well. As they continued, Ahioka began to tell Jack more about the recent troubles her people had faced. Some outsiders tried to claim our land, she explained. They threatened our families and forced many of us to leave. My parents stayed behind to protect what they could, but I got separated while helping move supplies. I didn't expect the canyon to be so dangerous. Jack listened carefully, understanding the gravity of her story. It wasn't just a tale of survival in nature. It was about survival in a world where threats came from both people and the land itself. He felt a deep sense of responsibility to help her safely reach her family.
By late afternoon, they reached a small stream.
Jack knelt to fill their water containers, and Ahioka washed her hands and face in the cool water. The moment of relief refreshed them both.
We're close now, Jack said. Your community isn't far from here.
Just a little more. Ahioka smiled faintly, her energy returning slightly. I can see it, she said. I think I can feel it. My family, I hope they're safe. Jack nodded. They will be. And you'll be back with them soon. As they followed the stream, the canyon began to open into a wider valley. The trees grew thicker, and the land flattened slightly. Ahioka's pace quickened, and she glanced at Jack with renewed hope. I think I remember the way, she said. I've been here before, with my family. We used to gather food along this stream. Jack smiled. Then you know the way. Lead, and I'll follow. She moved ahead carefully, guiding them through the familiar parts of the valley. Jack stayed close, ensuring her safety and watching for any signs of danger. They crossed fallen logs, stepped over shallow streams, and navigated small rocky hills. With each step, Ahioka's confidence grew, and Jack admired her resilience and skill. By early evening, they saw smoke rising from a distant village. Ahioka's eyes lit up. That's them, she exclaimed softly. That's my family. I'm going home. Jack's heart lifted. They were so close to achieving their goal. But he knew they had to remain cautious. Stay calm, he warned gently. We're not there yet. Let's move carefully. They approached the village slowly, keeping to the edges to remain unseen for a moment. Ahioka's family would be worried, and possibly on high alert. Jack wanted their reunion to be safe and peaceful. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the village. Ahioka's parents appeared in the clearing, their faces pale with worry. "Ahioka!" her mother cried, running toward her. Her father followed, carrying a mix of relief and concern. Ahioka ran to them, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here! I'm safe!" she shouted, throwing her arms around them. Jack watched silently, moved by the emotional reunion. Her family held her tightly, asking questions, prying, and thanking the heavens for her safe return. Jack stepped back, letting the family have their moment. He felt a quiet satisfaction. The journey had been dangerous and exhausting, but it had brought them safely here. Ahioka had survived the canyon, faced the dangers of the unknown, and was now back with the people who loved her. Her parents turned to Jack, gratitude shining in their eyes. "Thank you," her father said firmly. "You saved our daughter. We owe you our deepest thanks." Jack nodded simply. "She's brave. She survived because of her courage and strength. I just helped her along the way." Ahioka looked up at him, smiling through tears.
"Thank you, Jack," she said softly. "You kept me safe."
"You didn't just help me survive. You helped me find my way home." Jack smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He had witnessed courage, resilience, and the bond that can form between people when faced with danger. The canyon had tested them both, but it also taught them trust, respect, and the importance of helping one another. As the sun set over the valley, casting warm light across the village, Jack knew that Ahioka's journey was far from over. But for now she was safe, surrounded by the people who loved her. And he had played a small part in ensuring that she would have the chance to live, heal, and grow stronger. Ahioka's parents held her tightly, their relief almost overwhelming. Her siblings had gathered nearby, staring in awe at their sister, who had returned safely after such a frightening ordeal. Jack stood slightly back, letting the family have their moment, his heart quietly swelling with satisfaction. He had guided her through danger, but it was her courage and determination that had truly brought her home. Ahioka turned to Jack, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I can't thank you enough," she said softly. "I don't know what would have happened without you." Jack shook his head gently. "You did all the hard work. You survived even when it seemed impossible." "I just helped a little along the way." Her father stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Jack's shoulder. "You did more than just help," he said sincerely. "You protected our daughter when we could not. That means everything to us. You have our thanks and respect." Jack nodded, accepting their gratitude with quiet humility. He had never sought praise, but seeing Ahioka safe and reunited with her family was more than enough reward. The family gathered around Jack and Ahioka, asking questions about what had happened in the canyon. Ahioka recounted her story carefully, telling them how she had become trapped, how Jack had found her, and how he had helped her navigate the dangerous terrain back to safety. Her parents listened intently, their faces a mixture of concern, relief, and admiration. "It sounds like you faced more than just nature," her mother said softly. "You were alone and injured, but you never gave up." Ahioka nodded, her voice quiet but steady. "I had to survive. I wanted to see my family again. I couldn't panic, even when I was scared. I had to be strong." Jack watched her, amazed by the maturity and bravery she had shown. He could see that her experiences had shaped her in ways that no ordinary day in the canyon could. She had faced fear, pain, and isolation, yet she had emerged stronger. As the evening settled over the village, Jack was invited to stay for a simple meal with Ahioka's family. They sat around a wooden table outside, the warm glow of lanterns casting soft light over their faces. The smell of cooked vegetables and roasted meat filled the air, comforting and familiar. Ahioka sat close to her parents, occasionally glancing at Jack with a quiet smile.
You must be hungry, Jack said kindly as he was handed a plate of food. You've done a lot of walking today. I ate along the way, but it's nice to have a proper meal, she admitted.
She took a bite, savoring the taste. Jack smiled, recognizing that small comforts like this could feel monumental after days of struggle. During the meal, Ahioka's parents shared stories about their community, their daily lives, and the challenges they faced. Jack listened quietly, learning about their traditions, their ways of surviving in the canyon, and the strength that bound their community together. He realized that this girl he had helped was part of a world rich with history, resilience, and values that were deeply rooted in respect for family and the land. After the meal, Ahioka and Jack stepped aside for a quiet moment. She looked up at him, the gratitude and respect in her eyes unmistakable. "I feel like I've learned so much," she said softly. "About courage, about trust, and about hope. I'll never forget what you did for me." Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "And I've learned from you as well. You've shown me that strength isn't about age or size. It's about heart and determination. You've inspired me today." Ahioka smiled faintly, the first genuine smile in days. "I hope I can be as brave as you think I am," she whispered. "You already are," Jack replied firmly. "Bravery isn't just surviving. It's facing your fears and keeping your heart strong. You've done that and more." The night grew darker, the stars appearing one by one above the valley. Jack prepared a small area where he would sleep for the night, ensuring Ahioka had a comfortable spot nearby. He wanted to stay close until her family felt completely reassured that she was safe. She lay down quietly, her breathing slow and even, finally relaxed after the long journey. Jack looked up at the sky, reflecting on the day's events. The canyon had tested them both, with its dangers, unpredictability, and sheer challenge. But it had also revealed the best in them, the courage, trust, and human connection that grew when people faced challenges together. He realized that the experience would remain with him forever, shaping how he viewed life, strength, and compassion. The next morning, Ahioka woke refreshed. She looked at Jack and smiled softly. "I feel ready," she said. "Ready to face what comes next, with my family and with what I've learned from you." "That's good. You've grown stronger through all of this. And you'll need that strength for the future. But for now, enjoy being with your family. You've earned it." Ahioka ran to her parents, embracing them tightly once more. The relief on their faces was clear. They had feared the worst, and now their daughter was safe, stronger, and wiser from her experiences. Jack stepped back, watching the reunion quietly, feeling a deep satisfaction and pride. As the day progressed, Jack helped Ahioka settle back into her community life. He assisted with small tasks, showed her safe paths through the surrounding canyon, and helped ensure her family felt secure. The villagers who had heard of the girl's ordeal came to see her, expressing concern, admiration, and relief. Ahioka spoke carefully about her journey, sharing lessons about courage, survival, and trust. By evening, the community had gathered for a small celebration to mark her safe return. There were simple songs, laughter, and shared meals. Ahioka's bravery had become a story that inspired others, a reminder of resilience in the face of danger. Jack watched quietly from a distance, content in the knowledge that he had played a part in that story. As the celebration wound down, Ahioka approached Jack. "I'll never forget you," she said softly. "You didn't just help me survive. You helped me find hope when I thought there was none." Jack smiled gently. "And you reminded me why it's worth helping, even when the path is difficult. You've shown courage that few adults ever manage. That will stay with me."
Ahioka nodded, her eyes shining.
"I'll use what I've learned. I'll be strong, careful, and brave. And I'll help others when they need it, like you helped me." Jack placed a hand on her shoulder once more. "That's the right way to live. Courage isn't just surviving, it's using your strength to help others." The next morning, Jack prepared to leave. He had spent days guiding Ahioka safely back to her family, ensuring she was strong and cared for. The canyon behind him looked harsh, wild, and beautiful all at once, reminding him of the journey they had shared. Ahioka's parents came to see him off, offering heartfelt thanks once more. "You are always welcome here," her father said firmly. "You saved our daughter, and that will never be forgotten." Ahioka hugged him tightly. "Be safe, Jack," she whispered. "And thank you, truly."
Jack nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. He mounted his horse, glancing back one last time at the village and the girl who had taught him so much about courage, trust, and resilience.
As he rode away, he felt a quiet sense of peace, knowing that Ahioka was safe, her family was whole again, and the lessons they had shared would last a lifetime. The canyon was still rugged, the paths treacherous, but the story of survival, bravery, and human connection. Jack had learned that strength could be found in the most unexpected places, and courage could shine brightest in those who refused to give up, even in the face of fear. And Ahioka, the brave girl who had been trapped under rocks and faced the dangers of the canyon alone, had returned stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever life had in store. Her story would be told for years as a reminder that resilience, trust, and courage can overcome even the most daunting challenges.